My name is Sana Ginwalla, and I'm a co-fellow of the 2023 Cambridge Visual Cultures Fellowship. The exhibition that nobody will see that Kerstin Hacker and I developed as a result of the fellowship was an exercise in discovering the extent to which institutional archives, specifically the Royal Commonwealth Society Archive, can reveal and conceal its contents using creative interventions, as well as by engaging alternative archives across the world, such as Zambia Belonging. The Zambia Belonging collection is part of a much larger photographic platform that I started in 2018 called Everyday Lusaka. What prompted the start of Zambia Belonging was over 800 unclaimed and uncollected photographs from one of Lusaka's oldest photo studios called Fine Art Studios. The nature of the images were of families, holidays, studio portraits, and other everyday images that would otherwise not be present or preserved by an institutional archive. Zambia Belonging has thus been conceptualized and developed as a counter-archive that explores the possibilities of how images from the past can participate in one's sense of identity, of memory, of belonging. The counter-archive is a term coined by Charles Merriweather, who writes that the counter-monument or counter-archive is a form of recollection of that which has been silenced and buried. So during the fellowship, Kerstin and I experimented with two main approaches that we felt institutional or traditional archives may not always employ. The first being the content or nature of the images that we worked with. The dimension that the Zambia Belonging collection brought forth in being a self-governed archive was in itself in opposition to the colonial, ethnographic, and oppressive nature of the content we found in the Royal Commonwealth Society collection. However, we sometimes discovered overlapping themes and even individuals in the photographs between the two collections. For example, the most exciting and memorable discovery in these 2 short weeks was finding a book in the basement where the Commonwealth Society Archive resides called the Kapwepwe Diaries. It's a book written by Goodwin Bwalia Mwangilwa with a portrait of Zambia's former Vice President Simon Mwansa Kapwepwe on the cover. And this is an image that I recognized instantly to be something that exists in the Fine Art Studios collection. And when opening the book, I discovered that Fine Art Studios was indeed credited as the source of that image. So the intervention we were looking to do in putting these images from Fine Art Studios and Zambia Belonging in the RCS collection was indeed already happening. The second approach explored how we can allow the content to circulate and breathe through different spaces. Despite its naming, the exhibition that nobody will see is in fact living in worlds digital, print, exhibitory, and collaborative at the moment. Therefore, the possibilities of how photography, memory, and the archive often intersect, both in familial or national contexts, is a complex preoccupation which this fellowship really allowed us to explore.
My name is Kerstin Hacker. I'm holding the CVC Fellowship together with Sana Ginwalla. The questions Sana and I ask ourselves are, what should an archive be and what should it do? By using creative methods of investigation, the CVC Fellowship allowed us to open up the archive and create links between the Royal Commonwealth Society Archive and the Zambia Belonging Archive. We were able to challenge the Royal Commonwealth Society Archive system and create dialogue between objects from both archives. Sana and I want to provoke our audiences to imagine an archive that was not colored by colonialism and oppression. We are asking how Zambia would have been photographed if Zambian photographers had free access to cameras and were able to record their own narratives. As there was so little access to cameras to document the everyday life of the black Zambian population during colonialism, Zambia Belonging gives a unique glance into what could have been recorded. It highlights the gaps in the Royal Commonwealth Society Archive and the need for extensive research to uncover further photographic material outside of the formal structures of archives such as the Royal Commonwealth Society Archive. When looking at the Zambia belonging portraits of the freedom fighters who became the first members of the democratic elected government, we were reminded of the emotional labor and political willpower these people had to display to achieve Zambia's independence in 1964. Projecting the portraits into the stacks of the Royal Commonwealth Society Archive was therefore a deliberate provocation. The Zambia Belonging Archive becomes a splinter under the skin of the Royal Commonwealth Society Archive, as the holdings of the archival material is unveiled through our creative collaboration as an imagination of the empire. We hope that this provocation and the resulting creative outcomes will support the activation of a Zambian national memory and will foster visual self-governance.
My name is Sally Kent. I'm an archivist and the curator with responsibility for the Royal Commonwealth Society collection. The CVC Fellowship was quite challenging on several levels. Firstly, there was a logistical conundrum of getting them and their bulky photographic equipment into and out of the basement stacks. There were lifts, trolleys, keys and swipe cards to organise. And then there were issues I'd never thought of, such as automatic lighting, plug sockets, extension cables and backgrounds. But once Kerstin and Sana were in the stacks, it became much more of a surreal experience to watch them browse an archive collection. As archivists, we are so conditioned to presenting researchers with what we think of as a carefully constructed hierarchical catalogue with well-compiled descriptions, providing the researcher with all the information they could need. We would then ask the researcher to select items or files from the catalogue listing, and these would be made available in the reading room, a calm and controlled environment. The very idea of allowing researchers to browse the shelves in search of material would fill most archivists, myself included, with a sense of dread, with notions of order and structure and lists and protocols being disregarded. The time that Kerstin and Sana spent in the stacks, showing each other things, lifting things out of boxes, sifting through material, sometimes giggling hysterically, sometimes being silent, sometimes disappointed, really made me reflect on how we provide access. The conversations we had while working through some of the logistical headaches, or just walking the corridors, or waiting for the automatic lights to switch off, made me even more acutely aware of my responsibilities as the curator of this collection. Colonial-era archive collections, including the Zambian material, which Kerstin and Sana were interested in, are divorced from their place of origin and from the people they represent. Access to archives is so much more than archive catalogues and reading rooms. And sometimes we need something like this creative intervention by Kerstin and Sana to be reminded of that fact.